Our X-Files. Welcome to our X-Files vault. Regular people talking about unexplained phenomena. UFOs. Ghosts. Cryptids. Hidden archaeology. Weird science. Our stories. Our takes. Our X-Files vault.
Hey everybody, I'm here with filmmaker, producer, and director Jeremy D Hamm. He's also a lead singer and lead guitarist for an up-and-coming rock group called Petrichor Band. Hopefully he's going to let me add a clip of their music to this video because I was checking it out earlier and these guys are really good. And it makes me kind of sad that that's what rock doesn't, in another era, these guys would have been touring and throwing TVs from hotel windows because these guys would have been big. And I don't know, the YouTube has killed rock, so hopefully it'll make a comeback. But Jeremy's films include a paranormal documentary about Hayeswood Hospital, which is I believe in Kentucky, and a TV series called Local Legends, which is also focused on Kentucky. His company is called Ghost Hollow Productions. Today, we're going to talk about his childhood experiences of the paranormal and also unusual things that they encountered while making the TV series. Hey, Jeremy.
Hi.
How's it going, man? I was amazed at how good both you and the lead guitarist, which I think is you, that's featured in the video.
They shot the video down in Venezuela, so that's not me in the video, but
but it's your sound.
Yeah, that is my sound.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Yeah, no, what's going on with the band? Anything? How long you guys been playing together?
Few years. We're currently working on a new album. So this album, we're going to release 3 more videos off this album, and then while we're working on the next one. So
it must be just so hard now with the rock situation not being what it was when I was growing up, must be very frustrating. Well, and I guess now at this point the only rock bands that are out there are the ones that just really like rock. Right? So I mean, they're doing it for passion. They're not doing it just to hope to score a record deal and get some MTV videos.
I mean, there's a lot of amazing indie bands and stuff on YouTube that aren't signed. So I mean,
where does the name come from for Petrichor Band?
It means the earthly smell after it rains.
I didn't know that.
So it's actually spelled with an H, so it's CHOR, and I just took the H out of it and I just spelt it wrong because I was, it just makes it easier for people to remember and for people to spell, because a lot of people would spell it and probably not know it has an H in it or whatever. So I was like, I'll just keep the H out of it.
I could touch you into the flesh wound. I could feel you. I don't want to, 'cause body is a temple, and everyone's been in to pray. Pussy's like quicksand, sucking everything in.
Yeah, I was not familiar with that word. That's pretty cool. Now your films all deal with the paranormal and your documentaries. Does that stuff inspire your music too, or is the music just separate from that?
Kind of. I mean, I like dark music, so I mean, like dark haunting music. So I guess it kind of would go hand in hand, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, we got another guy in our group on our channel that I've done a few shows with. He's got a really cool band album out too, and I don't even know if they call them albums anymore, but a multi-track, whatever it's called now. And his stuff is all inspired by ancient legends and mythology from gods that are no longer worshipped anywhere. But he, like Lilith and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
demonic figures and those kind of things. He's not demonic himself. He's just inspiring. He just takes inspiration from these kind of myths and legends. His music is really, really good. So the first thing it looks like you were working on was Hayeswood Hospital. So tell us more about that. I'm not even sure where it is other than in Kentucky.
So it's located in Maysville, Kentucky. There is a video circulating on YouTube of a face in the window, but the TV show Ghost Asylum, which is the only paranormal show on that was around that actually went and investigated it. They took a look at the video and the video's fake. So
naturally,
it actually, like, that's pretty well known.
Yeah.
That video is, but a lot of people don't know it's fake. But yeah. It's a fake video. So
how much access did you guys get to it when you were filming there? Did you get?
I've been in Hayeswood probably 10 or 15 times.
So I'm not sure if I'm allowed to ask this or should ask this, but do you get permits to go in there, or was it just kind of sneaking in? Or
the owner at the time had let me in. And
okay,
everything.
so you were there with permission and stuff. Yeah. So, but it's so you spent quite a few hours in there.
Yeah.
Day and night. Did you do any overnights or?
Yeah, I did. Most of them were overnights. I did a few day shots.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we went in there the first time we went in and we didn't catch anything. And we just kind of went in there, just kind of like investigating and everything. And then I told the other two guys that was with me that did the documentary, I was like, let's just go back. Just, we got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And we decided to go in there and was investigating, and we didn't really know we caught anything at the time on audio or the camera. But we were kind of in the morgue area, and we heard this big, huge howl. It was, I don't know, it didn't sound like an animal at all. It was really weird. And my friend, one of the friends that was with me, was rewinding his DV tape. So when he closed the camera, it made kind of like a rewind sound. And it traveled into the morgue refrigerator. And my friend Ryan come out, and he's like, "Did you hear that sound?" I was like, "Uh-huh." And I was like, I said, "That was that." And he's like, "Yeah, is that why you come out here so fast?" He's like, "Yeah." And we was kind of just talking like that. All of a sudden, just right outside the morgue down the hallway, this weird crying howl thing, just really loud. And we just froze.
So how many people were with your crew? Was it just the two of you there, or were there other people?
There was three of us together.
And were all three of you, excuse me, in the room when that happened?
Yes.
Yeah. So if it would have to be, if it wasn't a legitimate supernatural thing, it would have to be someone that was hoaxing you a little bit, that knew you were filming there.
Yeah. I mean, and it's weird because there was nobody else there.
Yeah.
Nobody knew we were there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I mean, it's like, I mean, if you see the documentary, you'll know. There's an episode of Local Legends that we did where we basically took the documentary and just took all the evidence and put it in an evidence episode. So it was kind of like the short version.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, right there will tell you everything you need to know about everything we caught in the hospital. But yeah, it was a crazy experience.
Where can we find this documentary now? Is it on YouTube or is it?
I don't think the documentary is on YouTube, but I know the Hayeswood episode of Local Legends that has all the evidence from the documentary is on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and you should get that posted somewhere where people can get access to it. That'd be pretty cool. Were there any other? There must have been. What are the other legends that were associated with this? It was an old mental asylum.
So there's two boxes at the museum down in Maysville. There's one called the Wilson Infirmary because it was like a World War II hospital.
Mhm.
And before it became, I mean, that's what they used it for. Then it became a hospital for the community, and they built like the big hospital and it had like
Mhm.
3 floors. And
Yeah.
then they added a 4th floor, which was like the nursery and everything. They added that like years later, and like a whole new annex. They had built back into the hill.
Yeah.
So it was like became a massive building. Um, and then it was called the Hayeswood Hospital at that time. But like I think Ghost Asylum kind of got it wrong when they did it. They was in the nursery area, and you're seeing these like Sesame Street paintings that are wood, paint's chipping off of it, and they're calling it the Veterans Recovery Ward.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it was called Hayswood Infirmary, and I'm like, whoever did the research got the boxes mixed up because it's Wilson Infirmary before it was Hayeswood Hospital. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you obviously have credibility because you're not just trying to jump on any little sound that went on in there.
Right.
You eliminated the first sound as belonging to a piece of equipment sounding through the refrigerator, and you're trying to get the details right, which that other channel obviously wasn't as concerned with that. So I think your credibility is good on anything that you guys would have encountered there. It's in Maysville, you said, right?
Yes.
Is this a small town? Is it? I'm not
Yeah.
familiar with.
It's a small town along the Ohio River.
Okay.
I'd say the closest small town that's even smaller is Augusta, which is famous for George Clooney. That's
Oh, okay. Yeah.
where he's from. So, and that's like maybe a 15-minute drive.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never been down to Kentucky or West Virginia, and it's an area. It's one of those areas that just kind of, because of the cultural history and the mythology, I would love to go to. I've even last year I wrote a story and set it there, kind of, but it was just on a bus ride going through it. But I mean, I never, just because of my fascination with the area, but I've never been there. So, just I love the way the mountains make it so that you go around every mountain and it looks like there could be a whole different village that's completely different from the last one, and it's sheltered between their kind of, so you get all these little nooks and crannies of hidden cultures and places with their own traditions. And
Yeah.
is my imagination way off, or?
No, it's pretty close.
Yeah. So what were some of, maybe we'll come back to Hayeswood, because I do think so anything else you encountered there besides the scream, or?
A lot of stuff on audio that we caught. I'll tell you something weird that happened was I guess I had gotten kind of attached to the building. I guess where I'd went in for so many times, and I had a battery drain, and 2 or 3 people that was with us one night we went there, they were up on the 3rd floor. No females were with us. Just make that clear. I went out to the car and I put some stuff up. Went to recharge the batteries and things, get new batteries, went back in. On their audio recordings that they caught on the 3rd floor, they caught Jeremy's here. And maybe 40 seconds later, you hear me yelling from way downstairs in the ambulance bay, letting the guys upstairs know, hey, where you guys at? I'm back.
Yeah.
And it was weird because it was like a female voice. We had no females with us.
Yeah.
And
that's cool.
that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I can understand the attachment you feel. Just for me, it's not, I've never experienced an attachment that I would call psychic or anything like that to a building. I just love any old building that has a history, and the more history like that. And, because of all the recovering soldiers that were there in that building, and then and at other times insane people, and all that's all history. That's all those people that just crowded that place with their own history. And I always feel like there's a sense that that's still kind of alive there, in some level, even though I'm not psychic myself and somewhat skeptical, although open-minded to these things. Yeah, so I totally understand and up here in where I am near Boston, there's a lot of older historical buildings, and I can't help my eyes always drawn to them as I'm driving by. We got one that's at the bottom of my street. And I live in Andover, Mass, which is connected to, well, two of them really that are connected to the Salem witch trials. And these buildings were around during the Salem, and we're directly connected to them. So it's, I love the history behind that. So when you were growing up, you mentioned that you were raised in an environment of where I think you said your dad believed in paranormal belief or paranormal stuff.
My dad is a ufologist. He believes more into UFOs and aliens. But no, my grandfather had some experiences, and as grandkids, we had like 14 grandkids. So we all would like sit around campfires and stuff, and he would tell us stories that he experienced growing up.
Yeah.
And it kind of got me like, that's where my interest kind of peaked in the paranormal.
Do you remember any good ones from your grandfather?
Oh yeah, I remember all of them. There was one time he was walking home, and he looked over by this fence, and he saw a man without a head. And the house, the fence post, and everything that was in front of the house, the guy had apparently shot his dad shortly before that and had killed his dad there. And
wow.
Yeah.
I take it he shot him in the head.
Yeah. And it was so he saw that. He this old lady, I know there was one time where this old lady had died, and him and his brother were walking home from work, and they saw her sitting on the front porch rocking in the rocking chair. And they ran home and told their dad. He thought they were crazy. He's like, "Oh, y'all making up stories." They're like, "No, for real, she's there." So their dad's like, "I go down there and she's not there, you're all in trouble." He went down there, and there she was rocking in a rocking chair. And then she just slowly faded away and disappeared. Wow. So they had movers show up and took all of her stuff out. And like they were going to, I guess, tear the house down.
They wanted to get rid of her, huh?
Yeah. And then like the next day, all her stuff was back in the house.
How'd that happen?
They have no idea.
Oh, so nobody ordered it moved back in. It was she was a ghost with some magical pole.
Yeah, apparently. But yeah, he had stories like that.
And I'm assuming there's a lot of Bigfoot stories from down there too, being
actually
close enough to the mountains. And
maybe in the surrounding areas. I think Maysville, I think in the 70s, Maysville supposedly had like a albino Bigfoot or something. That it's like one incident. I think it's in the Weird Kentucky book.
Okay.
But somebody mentions it. Other than that, there hasn't really been anything else around Maysville as far as Bigfoot, but there are some surrounding counties and surrounding areas really close by that's claimed to have seen Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And I know Ohio, especially around this area along the river and everything, there's been the Ohio Grassman sightings too. So
now what is that?
That's
Ohio Grassman?
Yeah, that's the Ohio version of Bigfoot. So
okay.
Yeah.
I wonder why is he called Grassman? Does he have like long hair, green hair?
Yeah. He has long hair and it basically looks like grass, basically.
No.
So
all right.
Yeah.
So what were your experiences growing up? I know you had some personal ones.
I remember one incident when I was younger. Maybe 5, 6 years old. We was at my grandparents' house, and we were laying on the couch. I was laying on the couch with my mom, and I looked over, and in the middle of the room, I saw like 5 black shadow figures. And it was weird because you couldn't see through them. And they had this big black ball bouncing right in the middle of them. They just ran in a circle around this ball.
Huh,
And they kept getting closer and closer to the couch. And I was freaking out. And my mom's like, I don't see nothing, honey. I don't see nothing. And I'm like, they're there. They're coming. And eventually they disappeared, went away. And I'll tell you something I just found out recently. I was talking to my cousin who, when she said she was little and everything, she was down there and she described seeing the exact same thing, but with a red ball. And she saw this in my grandparents.
When she saw it, were the figures red or they shadow, but with a red ball?
They were shadows with just a red ball.
And yours was just, everything was shadow with yours, right? Including the ball. Yeah.
Yep. And it's weird because she had never heard my story. I've never heard hers. And when she told me that, I was like, are you serious? I was like, and she goes, what? And so I told her my story and she was like, that's weird. She's like, that we had the same experience. We didn't even know about it. And it was, we've had that at our Mimos house. And it was weird that we both had that kind of same experience and didn't even know. So it's
also
weird.
Interesting that your mom was there with you, but she couldn't see it.
Right.
Like her senses were different.
Yeah.
So do you have any theories about what this might be?
Not really. I mean, because my grandfather was a religious man. He was a preacher.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I kind of like to rule out, demonic or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the land they had lived on was pretty old. So, I mean, and I do know that there was a cistern that they had covered up.
Yeah.
But before they had covered up, apparently they had found human remains. And this is before my grandparents had moved down there. So maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. But
these were child size figures that you both saw, or they were normal size?
They were normal. I'd say maybe 6 foot, maybe. They're pretty tall.
Oh, that's because you would think like the ball was what made me think, kid, like if there was a ghost memory of kids in the past that were playing with a ball, or even kids from another connected dimension that were playing with a ball, but these were adults. So
it was just weird. And the ball just straight up and down, right in the middle of them. They just ran around this ball. It was just weird.
So maybe they weren't playing with it. Maybe it was some kind of a device you're thinking, or something that had some other purpose besides play, or do you think they were playing with it? Oh, we lost her.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. Yep.
Yeah, I was kind of muted.
Oh, I don't know what happened. I didn't touch anything. That's damn computers.
I think I got a phone call. So
and it muted it. Okay, I got you. Yeah. So no, I was saying that so do you think this ball was, when you first told me ball, I'm thinking this is something that there were kids, and although it turns out they were adults, were playing with. But I suppose it could be something that was just round and was doing something, but was was not for playing. It was something else, right? Is it possible some kind of a technology, or
I don't know. It was weird. I don't know. I can't really explain it.
Yeah. It's obviously would be speculating, but I mean, did it look like they were playing or just kind of doing something with it?
Just running around, and it was just bouncing right in the middle, and they were just running around, and they just kept getting closer and closer to the couch, and I was just like flipping out.
Too bad you didn't start hearing Sweet Georgia Brown. Then you would have known it was the Globetrotters. No, it's interesting. I mean, because it's like, even too, like with fairy lore, there's a big thing with circles, going back to medieval times with the fairies. And a lot of that has been connected to UFO by some modern people to UFO type phenomena too, where these beings are just kind of circling, and and then they end up disappearing into the circle, or they come out of the circle and think, the ball part is a new twist, but it's also, again, if you believe in those and kind of things like fairies, they seem to have one foot in some older technology, but they adopt something that is current to that particular moment, to that particular day. So same thing with Jack Valet talking about the UFO phenomena, how they kind of have sometimes seem a little bit in a different, from a different time or a different place, totally different place, but they adopt something similar to ours. So in this case, these guys might have adopted a ball, to get your attention, or,
No.
Like I said, I'm a skeptical, but I'm a writer, so I enjoy these things and I keep an open mind. We have people that work with us that are more on the believing side, and I can't, I would not say no to anything.
So I had one more experience as a child.
Okay.
This is when we lived in Pennsylvania, and this is kind of like, I guess, falls on the religious side, maybe.
Okay.
But my brother was saying, I don't remember if he was asleep or saying his prayer or whatever. And I was a little kid, maybe about 5. It's probably around the same age.
Yeah.
And his closet door was open, and I looked around the room, and I see this figure in his closet, and the figure was pitch black. The face was pitch black.
Yeah.
It had long, straight white hair, glowing yellow eyes, and I could see solid white hands.
Huh.
It was just standing there, and I was flipping out. And I'm shaking him, and he was like, "What?" And there was a prayer I used to do when I was a kid, and it was like the 5 little angels prayer. And I closed my eyes, and I said the prayer, and I opened my eyes. It was gone.
Wow, that's a really unique mixture of color and non-colored. So, tell me more about the face. Was it? You said it was like a black. Like, was it? Could you make out any texture to it? Was it shadow black? Like the absence of light?
It was no light at all. The only
No light at all, and no features. And no features at all.
Nope, just the hair and the eyes was all.
And the eyes, yeah, the eyes were yellow, right?
Yeah,
the hair was white, the eyes were yellow, and the hands were white. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I know. It's always fascinating. I don't know how to even try to come up with an explanation for these things. Even how your mind could play a trick on you, but it's hard to imagine something like that.
I mean, I don't know. I just kind of chalked it up as childhood imagination or whatever. I guess as I got older, I kind of straddled the fence a little bit, on believing, not believing.
Yeah.
We did the local legends episode when I first, and then we had the Hayeswood experience kind of opened my eyes a little bit to that. So I was like, why not? My friend was really into ghost hunters, and he was like wanting to do a show, and I'm like, well, why not? Let's just do one. So we did local legends.
Yeah.
And I remember I know the finale really got me because I had never been touched or had anything like that happen.
Yeah.
I've had things whisper in my ears and things like that in investigation.
Yeah.
But I never actually was been had my clothing touched or been touched in any way or anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we did the finale, and we was at this old house that I guess had been like a Civil War hospital at one time.
Yeah.
And we had this woman with us that was a medium, and she went in and she was doing kind of like a reading. And the guy who owned the house had like a wedding veil in his closet, and he said it was there ever since he moved in. And I remember he said he gave the wedding dress away, but kept the veil. And then the woman ended up calling him like a week later. She was like, did you take the dress back? He goes, no, why? She goes, well, I gave it to my son for his wedding, and he never did find it. He lost it. She's like, no. So he was up there doing some work and stuff upstairs, and he opened the closet, and it was set back in his closet. So he gave the wedding dress back and never saw it again. But he kept the veil. And we had the medium touch the veil. She sat there and she goes, Betty? She's like, getting like a Betty. So he went down and he looked up all his history of the house of everybody who past owners. And in the 1930s, I think it was 35, 36, there was a Betty that had lived there. And she's like, that's her wedding veil. And it was a pretty old looking, old style veil.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I can have some fun with this. And we went up there and we were setting things up, and it was just me and my friend Ryan. We're the only ones upstairs. And we're setting up, we're in this one room. And I guess he had been painting in the room, the guy who owned the house. And he had paint cans sitting on plastic over top of the carpet.
Mhm.
We could hear somebody walking across the plastic towards us. I was like, dude, stop moving. He's like, dude, I'm not moving. I looked down. He was completely on the carpet. I'm completely on the carpet. And we could hear somebody moving across the plastic.
Yeah.
I said, oh man, tonight's going to be good. So it got dark. I was like, you know what? I'm going to have some fun with that veil. So I go in there. They said she does not like the veil to be touched. It's like, okay, well, she's going to get out of that tonight. So I grab the veil. I hang the veil up in the hallway on on a piece of plywood that was leaning up against the wall. And we had the medium literally in front of me in a room, standing there in the doorway. And I had the other guy, Matt, with a camera taking pictures. And then Ryan was behind him filming me with a camera.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, all right. I hang the veil up. I'm like, all right, Betty, you want this back in? You're going to do something. All of a sudden, Matt takes like a 10 picture burst or 5 picture burst or something. And I feel my hoodie move, like my shirt, like literally move. And there was some space between me and the wall.
Yeah.
And nobody moved past me. And he's like, dude, you got to look at this. And he showed me the picture. And there was an orb that had moved past me at that time. I said, okay, Betty. I said, if that was you, that was pretty cool. I was like, you're going to have to do more than that if you want this back in there. All of a sudden, I felt this really, really immense pressure and pain in my head, like somebody was just squeezing the side of my temples. And I was like, oh, man. I was like, dude, I said, take a picture. He took a picture, and there's an orb on the back of my neck.
And you're like, all right, Betty, you win.
Yeah, I hung it back up. But yeah, that's probably the only time where something like that happened, except for maybe unless you count the part where I was, I guess, possessed or attacked or whatever in Hayeswood. I don't really know what happened there. We didn't have it on video. We got it on audio, but
yeah.
We was in Hayeswood,
Yeah.
and I got this really immense sadness come over me. And my dad was with us and was with me, and Ryan at the time, these are big guys, and it took both of them to get me out of that hospital, and they both could barely move me. And I just kind of blacked out. I don't know what happened. I just felt really sad, and then I just blacked out. And they're sitting there yelling at me. I'm just standing there. I'm not saying anything. They had to grab me and pull me out, and they said that they couldn't even move me. They said I was like a statue, and I don't know what you would call that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was a weird experience that I had in Hayeswood. But
yeah, I guess if possession is a real thing, that probably is what it would feel like, or at least the start of one. Maybe it didn't fully,
right.
Get in the way it needed to. But I have another person that I do a regular show with, and I'm doing one after this, but we were talking a month ago, and it was not a planned part of the show, but he grew up in Guyana, and it came out that there was a girl, when they were teens, 14 or 15, there was a young woman who he was friends with in class who suddenly became possessed in class, and they had to call medical and law authorities to take her out, and she had to go through exorcism and treatment for a few weeks. She's okay now. He's still in touch with her. I tried to get her on the show, and because she listened to it, and she said it was weird listening to someone talk about it, but she said, yeah, that's how but she didn't remember like what happened in the classroom. She, because to her, she blacked it out too, just like you said, so it's interesting. Have you been back in the house since then? Or do you feel afraid to go in there because of that experience?
You mean in Hayeswood?
Yeah, in Hayeswood, yeah.
No, I mean, I think that may have been my last time in Hayeswood.
So would you feel nervous about going back because of that? I know you had an attachment to it, but
not really.
Yeah.
I know that when Ghost Asylum, because they interviewed me for the show, and I was on the episode, they completely cut out my stories. Like they were like, what kind of folklore is there?
Yeah.
And I was like telling them, and they completely cut it out. But when it showed their footage, they had like tore the walls and stuff down, and like not them personally, but people who were doing renovating,
Yeah.
and because they're wanting to tear it down instead of making it a historical landmark.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, they're tearing the place apart. I just don't feel, it just, to me, it's not the same.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't know. I just don't
It's
feel
lost
like,
a lot of that history. Yeah.
right. So
Yeah.
I just don't feel the need or the urge to want to go back, I guess.
Right.
I don't know.
Right. I have a few things I want to ask you about, just if you don't mind sticking with me a few more minutes. These were things that I just found in looking up the history of the supernatural and unexplained mysteries in Kentucky, which it seems like there's an incredible amount of stuff there, So for instance, in Fort Knox in 1948, there was a fatal crash where the military sent up 4 planes after a UFO that they could see from the base that they were monitoring. Are we familiar with that story at all?
Not that one. No.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it was one of the pilots kept trying to chase it, and he went above altitude and lost consciousness and then crashed and died. But apparently it was moving too fast and going higher than technology at the time allowed. And then of course, I personally think this is, maybe there was some original story there that has now become Amityville horror kind of thing where people are taking advantage of it. But the Hopkinsville thing, you must be familiar with that one. There's been a whole
I'm very familiar with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think that they may have saw something, but
Yeah.
when it comes to things like that, I take it with a grain of salt. I mean,
Right.
because I think that they take something, because there could be something super small.
Right.
And the whole town will be like, oh, well, we can make money off this, and then they'll
Yeah,
just completely
yeah.
blow it up.
Yeah.
I guess an example would be the Flatwoods Monster. There was it's a big cryptid legend and everything. There's supposed to have been this UFO sighting, this alien, this big alien. These kids saw it and everything. Well,
Yeah.
I wanted to do an episode of Local Legends there, so I went down there and to West Virginia, and I met a guy down there, an old man, and he was like, and I went to interview him.
Yeah.
And he took us to the site, and he's like, oh, I came up here as soon as the kids reported it. And he's like, and there was nothing there. I think the whole thing's blown out of proportion. And he was just sitting there and he just blew the whole story off. And I'm just sitting there like, well, this was kind of like a whole wasted trip. I mean, his interviews just basically discredited everything.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I can't call the dude a liar because, it's like he was there. So, I can't say, oh, well, he's lying, blah, blah, but I don't know. I mean, so I was like, okay, well, we'll have to scrap this episode because he was the only person I can find that was related to that incident at the time. And,
Sure.
Well,
I mean, and sometimes maybe there's opportunity there. Like if you had an old timer like that was at least willing to talk to you. Now, you were investigating something that I guess apparently sounds like it's already been investigated to death by other people and there's been other shows on it. So, but maybe you could have said to this guy, hey, give me some story, something of, something local that no one else has. And maybe, maybe get something out of him that way. Next time you go down.
There was something that I was wanting to work on maybe as the next project. I was wanting to do something on cryptids of the Ohio River, like monsters of the Ohio River.
Okay.
There's been I know Loveland is where they saw the frogmen. There's been quite a bit of sightings of the frogmen or whatever. And I started doing research on the Ohio River, and I started finding all this information, like the mud mermaids in Indiana that came up out of the Ohio River that was spotted in the 1800s. And there was several people saw this octopus looking thing come up out of this was in I think the 70s, I think.
Yeah.
It's just really cool stuff. And I was like, all these sightings have to be connected. Then apparently there's a legend called the Shauna Hook. It goes way back to Indians. and it's supposed to be this what they call these demons of the river that had frog-like faces, and the Indians used to, you know, were scared of this thing, and they would scare it back into the river and everything. And I'm just like, all the cave systems that's under the water, and how long the river is. I mean, might be something to it. And I'm like, if not, I mean, it makes for a good story. So I mean,
Absolutely. And that one sounds a little bit original. And if you could find some Native Americans willing to talk about it, that'd be even better. I mean, that'd be worth the trip, I would think. I did another one I found that just was, I don't know how much anything supernatural involved this, but apparently there was a young mother and her 6-year-old daughter that was burned at the stake as witches back like around, I forget the year, went around 1800, but maybe even further back than that. It was in Pilot's Knob.
Yeah, I've heard of that
Kentucky.
one.
Yeah. That's all. I don't know. I always, there's a certain attraction in that, but just because there's so much tragedy, like the idea of what kind of people could burn a 6-year-old child, but it shows you how afraid people were back then of these things. They were, things like witches were really real to them, and because it's not like they were still, the people that did this, that lived in these towns, just like the people that lived in my area for the Salem witch trials, they were real people. So they, just like us, so they had compassion and feelings and fears and all, but they were so afraid that they were, they had hardened themselves to the idea that you could kill people or torture people if you thought they were witches, anyways. Yeah. So man, thank you very much, Jeremy. This has been a great interview. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we close up shop?
No, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, some of the local legends episodes that we've got is on YouTube.
Yeah.
Check them out. We've got some interesting things on there. So
any links you give me, I will post also below. It's on the YouTube so people can scan down and see that. And